Everything, everything gonna be all right this morning.
And we are off to the races once again, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode for the archives. It's me speaking to you, Jeffrey Wilson, coming to you live and direct. Very stoked to be talking to our guest today. He is no stranger to the show. He has an event coming up, and the whole organization has the final event of the year, Caged Aggression number 34. Domination is kicking off Friday, October 14th and Saturday, October 15th. And if you can't make it to the Quad Cities, of course, there is that pay-per-view option, CagedAggression.tv. He is so gracious with his time because it is crunch time, ladies and gentlemen, as the fights are barely a little over a week away. The El Jefe of Caged Aggression joining us today, Mr. Mike Goodwin. What's up, brother?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I was asking before we got started here, how are things going? And you're saying a little bit too smooth. What do you mean by that, bro?
Well, I guess after doing it this long, you start to learn patterns and timelines and everything. And the week before the show is what I call Hell Week. This is where everything on my end has to come together. This is where essentially you find out if things aren't good on the fight card side. I've learned that the fighters do respect me, and they don't want to back out on fight week. So if they were going to back out, it would be this week. So this is what I call Hell Week. But then traditionally next week is Hell Week for them, where they finish up their weight cuts and all that non-fun stuff. So it's just been going really smooth, man. 52 fighters, and with the exception of a passport visa issue we had with an international girl, man, I haven't had a hiccup. And even doing a one-night fight card, statistically, you're going to get a small percentage that, injuries or something. I mean, all the way up to the UFC level, the fight card is never what they originally put together. And here we are, 10 days out, and I don't have a hiccup so far.
Well, and we saw that with that last UFC card with Nate Diaz, Tony Ferguson, all that, Khamzat Chimaev, like all of that craziness, all within 48 hours before the fight's supposed to happen. So I definitely feel you there, man. So, I mean, that is always so impressive, man. Obviously, even a one-night event is crazy, and you're such a madman. Not only have you done 2 nights, you've done 3 nights, what we're going to talk about here towards the end here, but the logistics of putting together a 2-night fight card, like you said, 52 fighters. Talk to us a little bit about how that is and how, I mean, again, putting those puzzle pieces together. It's got to be daunting. Well,
I will never. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse because I say this every show, but I don't think it'll ever change. Every time I sit down to do a fight card, I have this kind of internal fear, like, will anybody want to be a part of it? And, to me, 2 things. I always said that if we ever got to a point where I was scrambling to find fighters, or I was just trying to get enough guys or girls to fill up a card, then I don't want to do it anymore, because at that point it's just a hobby. But on the other side of the spectrum, I never thought that we'd put out an event announcement and we'd have hundreds of fighters interested in being on it. So it's a double-edged sword, because I need to really put together 2 nights of really well-matched fights. I need a big list of interest. I need a couple hundred fighters, and that's what allows me to really move the puzzle around and put really good matchups together. And at the same time, I don't like having so many fighters I can't get on the card. But that's still my favorite part, man. Once the teams and the names start coming in, I start to get real excited, and then I can kind of sit back and carefully put the fight cards together. Not only stylistic matchups, but commitment levels. Maybe some guys I couldn't get on in a previous show that I've given my word to this one. So really, as crazy as it sounds, with so many fighters to manage, that's the part I really love, is putting that puzzle together. Then it's maintaining that puzzle.
Yes.
It looks beautiful, and then we start putting in all the legwork to promote them correctly, present them correctly at the show, build all the graphics, all that behind-the-scenes stuff. So then when things do change, it's not just filling a fight. It's filling a fight and then probably 15 things that follow to update the puzzle that was already done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and honestly, I'm not speaking for you, but it sounds like it's a good problem to have, because obviously your worst nightmare is scrambling to get fighters to want to participate. And, having worked with you guys so much, seeing the growth of the promotion, it just kind of, it's indicative of the growth and the success that you have hundreds of fighters now. Like, whoa, now I almost have too many to pick from. But again, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's awesome, man, and it keeps like pushing me to do the multi-night events, because if we have so much talent, then really one night isn't even close to enough. It's gotten to the point where 2 nights isn't even enough, but there is this business side of things that we have to be careful on that end. So we never did 2-night events outside of March ever until the COVID thing hit, and with the popularity and I guess all of the timing, it just seems silly to ever try to do one night again.
And that's most people's starting point, and they just kind of stay there. Whereas you, and I've just always had so much respect for you, your love for the game, your respect for the fighters, and even like I said during COVID, man, you were just killing the game, just knocking out again 2 nights, and then being the first ever promotion to do 3 nights. So hat is off to you, man, for your commitment. But obviously, like you said, this is going to be the last card for the year for 2022. You got a lot of fighters returning. Obviously, UFC veterans, Bellator veterans, LFA veterans. You got a lot of debuts kicking off this time. Tell us who should we be? I mean, obviously, no slight on anybody, but what are some highlights and what are some fights you think we should all be keeping our eye out for this weekend or next weekend?
Man, it's really hard not to start with this main event. There's so much. There's so much behind this matchup. There's so much behind the story. So I guess I'll start with kind of our veteran, caged aggression vet, Austin Hubbard. He's been with us a really, really long time. He was one of our amateur champions way back in the day. He moved over to the pro side, became a professional champion, and then he did what I feel if you want to make it, you need to do, and he left home, and he moved out to Colorado to one of the best gyms in the world and starts training with, the right team to get him to the UFC. And that's what happened. He actually made it. He was a 7-time UFC vet. He won 4 of those, lost 3 of them. And the UFC cut him. So Iridium Sports Management. So he's in great hands with the right management company. And they're telling him, a couple impressive finishes and get him right back in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes his first fight out of the UFC versus Julian Lane. And unfortunately, that was mainly just a ground fight. It ended up in a decision, which, as you know, the UFC is looking to get back in there, especially. They're looking for finishes. They're looking for that kind of electric finish. So, here we go. We start talking about him coming home. It's been years now, so I know the fans in the Sterling area, Rock Falls, would love to show up for him. Austin is eventually going to be moving back home. But first things first. I mean, he is a true fighter, a veteran. And so, this is a fight to, I guess, maybe get everybody back together, lift some spirits, and then it's back to business. But as you'll attest to, man, business is business, and there are no easy fights with caged aggression.
No.
And Austin doesn't want an easy fight, man, and that's not what's going to get him back into the UFC.
Right.
So we had to find somebody that was legitimate and that was, I guess, in a way, looking to make a name off of a UFC veteran. So we got a hold of a gentleman by the name of Keegan Agnew, who fought for us last March. And he is a 6-0, 5-0 undefeated professional prospect. He has probably some of the slickest, unorthodox jits I've ever seen. Extremely confident, extremely underrated, and he just hasn't really, before caged aggression, he fought in shows that didn't have a lot of presentation or didn't have a lot of maybe notoriety to get his name out there. Even though he's fighting tough competition in those shows, he's not really getting seen, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
So here we go. We find a guy that is, off the walls, excited to be able to fight a guy like Austin. And, the way he's been promoting it himself is, you guys will know me after this fight. I'm going to be a 7-time UFC vet, and then I'm going to be the one to take his spot. So it's weird because, I got a lot of love for Austin and his family, and I'm trying to keep the business side and the emotional side separate because there's one thing that can deflate that venue on Friday night is Austin losing. But at the same time, man, caged aggression was built and has become what it has to help fighters advance to the next level. And if we can help, if Keegan goes in there and beats a veteran like Austin, then by all means he deserves that hype. He deserves that win, and he deserves to get a call from a bigger stage based on who he's beat.
Sure. Well, and it's always good. I mean, you're always, I've said this many times, you're always so good at matchmaking, and it's, there's always, it just adds more value to it when you have, like the human story behind it, like layers to it. You know what I mean? It just
Absolutely.
It just makes it that much more enriching of a story and something to watch. Obviously, you got other, Dominic the Heat Martin. I think he's the co-main either Friday or Saturday night. Looking forward to him. He had a very impressive victory. I think it was last March. I think it was where his opponent like slammed him 3 times in a row, and then Dominic had the wherewithal to slip in a heel hook just like out of the blue. It was a very impressive victory. Looking forward to that fight. Looking forward to Thomas Blackerby, young man with just amazing Muay Thai skills and just growing every day. A lot of talent on the card, man.
Yeah. It's funny you bring up Dominic in a backstory because very similar. I've been eyeing Dominic Martin versus Cameron Jordan out of Nebraska ever since they were both amateurs. And this is one of those fights where it's almost like they're looking in a mirror. They mirror each other's style, size. I mean, it truly is like them fighting each other. And the reason the fights never materialize is because neither one of them were really ready for that test. I mean, who wants to fight themselves, especially if they're confident in their own skills?
Right.
So, here we go. Fast forward years now that I've been watching these guys and wanting to see this fight line up. The timing's perfect. As a matter of fact, that those 3 slams versus Sinjin Ruby, that was Dominic's last win. That's also Cameron Jordan's last win is Sinjin Ruby. So again, with the backstory and history, and it's a really great fight because these guys are still young in their professional careers, and this is a real test to show both of them where they're currently at right now.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those fights where it really is a win-win for both because, the guy that doesn't get his hand raised at night, he's gonna know, okay, this is where I'm at. And this is what I've got to do to continue to move forward.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Dominic, and I know before that, prior to that last fight, that whole year leading up to it, he had his own kind of health issues and just a lot of his own personal stuff. But again, it's the commitment. It just speaks to the commitment of like so many of these fighters, their dedication to their craft, to the sport. Where, I remember, not to bounce around too much, but I remember Lee Colvin. Lee Colvin's mom passed away, I think, the week of the fight. Yeah. He still stepped in there and fought. So these guys, there's absolutely no punk in their DNA, and they go in there to scrap and put on an incredible show. And I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, Friday, October 14th, Saturday, October 15th will be no exception because these guys are really just super, super talented. And again, Mike throws on nothing but incredible matchups. So I can't keep you too long because I know you got daddy duty stuff, but obviously we have the 13th and 14th going down. That's the last card fight for the year. But do we have another 3-night event coming up in the spring?
Yeah, before I get to that, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Let me turn the tables here. So what I've been noticing a lot this year and talking to people is a lot of comments, posted on social media, and I get messages and people say to me, you really need to do more shows, man. Why don't you do more shows? So I'm going to ask you, and here's my thought process, which kind of gets blurred into the promotional side of things. But right now, this year, I'm doing 5 shows. I'm just doing them in the form of 2 multi-night big events.
Right.
So to me, I could do 5 separate nights and kind of space them out throughout the year, but that's kind of reinventing the wheel, rebranding, restarting over 5 separate times, and then also battling the times of the year, business time, trying to do shows in summer when people are busy or in the dead of winter when nobody wants to get out. The way we do it is so big and so expensive that, one, it really does take more than one night to pay for the event the way we want to do it. But more importantly, it has to make sense. And the way we do it requires a full venue, not only for the financial side, but the energy in that building is so electric when it's full. I don't want to have smaller shows that are half the capacity because we tried to force them in the middle of winter.
Agreed.
So asking you as a fan, been a part of what we do, don't you prefer the bigger multi-night events as opposed to 5 single nights, or what do you think?
I do, because like what you almost alluded to, I mean, you want more bang for your buck. So if it takes less shows a year, I mean, also not only from the standpoint of like packing the house and not having too small of a house or too small of a crowd, it's from the fiscal standpoint. If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. You know, as much as Caged Aggression is, in my opinion, I've told you this the moment you got your first global pay-per-view, Caged Aggression became a global promotion, but it's not the UFC. The pockets aren't as deep. Me personally,
Sure.
I would like, for me, less is more. Don't spread yourself too thin. You do such a great job, you know, spacing them out the way you do. I mean, of course, I'd love to see more, but it's just, is it something that's feasible or sustainable for multitudes of reasons, like you mentioned? But I think the way you're doing it is like less is more. And then when you knock out, you know, when you don't do 1-night events anymore, you do 2-night events and 3-night events. So I think, you know, as much as I think we would love to see more, I think you know better than anybody else about spreading yourself too thin, you know, between the roster and the timing of everything, you know, like you said, the times of the year and this and that. I think you're doing it. Like I said, if it ain't broke, don't break it. And I think you're doing a very good job with how you're spacing them out right now.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that typically the comments or the people that say that, or maybe the fighters that didn't get on the show, so they're like, "Man, you really need to do more shows, bro." Like, so.
Well, and again, as the promotion continues to grow, and you do have way more fighters knocking at your door, you still, from a financial standpoint, have to be able to sustain doing more shows. But I mean, it sounds like even doing, you know, less shows, you still got the talent. You can still put the fights together. You're not scraping the bottom of the barrel to put together your fights. And I think, you know, how can people miss you unless you go away for a little bit? And it's one thing to kind of go away for too long, because then it becomes out of sight, out of mind. But I think you ride that wave well enough where you're never gone for too long. And like you said, like summer, I know UFC puts on events in the summer, but again, it's the UFC. Most people, like you said last summer, it's like people are doing stuff. They're out and about. Granted, they might be home at 9, 10 o'clock to watch a fight or whatever, but it's, you know, summer's a little bit different than the downtime of spring and winter when you know people are at home.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I think it's a good setup. So to tie into what you had asked about March, so initially when we did that, it really was mainly because of the amount of interest. And, you know, I'm always trying to go bigger somehow than the one before. And it was like, man, this might kill me, but if there's so many fighters that want to be a part of it, let's do a 3-night event. Let's do the first ever. I researched and I could not find anywhere ever a 3-night MMA event that was done at the highest levels all the way down to the lowest. And I just couldn't. So I was like, you know what, that'd be cool to, you know, have a little piece of history in this thing, you know, before someday I'm not doing it anymore. And then we got through the whirlwind, and I'll be honest with you, man, I was utterly exhausted Sunday night from Teardown, but I missed it. I missed it already. I had already missed like we were weigh-in, show, 3 after parties. I mean, it was all these teams. It was just awesome, man. So and I truly thought I was going to do just one of those. So then we get to the next March, and I'm like, you know, why not? We have the talent. We know what we're doing. Let's do it. So, but this was the first time we did it with no COVID restrictions and, you know, and a lot of other stuff going on. So I'm like, maybe it worked because there wasn't much going on, but now everything's going on. So is it going to work? And then, you know, if you look at the pictures, Thursday night just as packed as Friday just as packed as Saturday. And, you know, the fans really showed up. And a lot of things that I had heard, which I wasn't expecting, was Thursday night show. A lot of people were saying, I finally get to go to a show, because Friday, Saturday is maybe their bread and butter at work or their money makers. So they can't ever take a Friday, Saturday off. And they're like, I finally get to go. So fast forward to next March, already ahead of the game. I get a hold of the venue, and I put in for a 4-nighter, bro. I put in for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Fuck it. Let's do it. And I was, you know, why not, right? I mean, why not? And unfortunately, they did not have Sunday available. They only had Wednesday. And as, you know, I guess I'm not afraid of risks. I think I've proven that.
Yes.
I'm not trying to do a Wednesday night, man. I'm not March, not but everybody's back to work and scheduling, and it would be very, very, very tough to pull off a Wednesday. So we just locked in another 3-nighter. And it's funny because I go, so unfortunately we just have another 3-nighter. How crazy
just
does that
another
sound
3-nighter.
Say it out loud, man.
Yes.
What the hell?
Well, and again, man, fortune favors the bold, and you are definitely that. And, kudos to you. I'm the same. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. The worst they could say is no, and you're back to, like you said, a boring-ass 3-night event, only 3.
Another 3.
But
could you imagine now if I put out a 1-night? I mean, could you imagine the comments? Only one?
Seriously, though. I mean, it's almost like you can't go back.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's like something just ridiculously special, and I don't know. You got Milicic coming out of retirement or some shit. I mean, but it's like it would be to go back to 1 night is absolutely crazy. And it's, success leaves clues. And you guys, from your first show, however many, 10 plus, if not longer years ago, Mindprint Productions, Justin Holstein, Paul Martinez. I mean, what the job they do with the production and the trailers. I'm going to add the link to the trailer in the description of this video. Just next level, dude. It just gets you so hyped and gives you goosebumps. And I love trailers. I love movie trailers. I love promo trailers for this kind of stuff. And it just lets you know, man, the talent that's in there, not only just in the cage, man, behind the scenes, and I always thank you guys, man, just the huge amount of work that goes into whether 1 night, 2 nights, or 3 nights. People don't ever see how the sausage is made. And it's a very elaborate, very tedious, very complex process. And those guys put in, and you as well, put in an incredible amount of work, and it shows on fight nights, plural. So, yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Justin, the whole crew, man. And, the work is just getting started because I know you guys have to get in there and set up and break down, etc. But, again, ladies and gentlemen, October 14th, Friday, October 14th, Saturday, October 15th. If you can't make it, cagedaggression.tv. And then this will be the last card for the year. But then, like he said, in March, they're going to do it again, 3 nights. Can't believe it, but it's what I've come to expect from you, brother. Any other final word for our guests and peoples out here?
Oh man, not that I can really think of. One thing that really stands out with these multi-night events, or I guess I wouldn't necessarily call it a challenge. It's also fun, but is I do my best to try to make it super hard for you to pick which night to come to. If you can only come to one, if you can only watch one. So I always want to stress that because of that, I split the talent up. In what I feel, both nights you get your money's worth tenfold. But we always have a discount when you come both nights. If you show your Friday ticket at the door Saturday, you get a discount. If you buy both nights of the pay-per-view, it's cheaper than buying it single night. So I want to make it hard for you to pick both nights so that you want to come both nights, so that you can watch both nights. But we also want to give you a deal for coming both nights because we appreciate that support.
Yeah, that's what's up, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm telling you, as someone who's partaken in calling the scraps, I mean, it's hard to pick like which night was better than the other. Each one, I mean, like I said, I hate to keep saying it, but it's so true. The matchups are absolutely next level. There are no smokers, no tomato cans, no, like Mike matches these guys up very, very evenly in the scraps. I mean, just look at the highlights. Go to Cage Aggression's YouTube page. You can see some of the highlights, some of the knockouts. Some of them have made national news. Business Insider when I think it was Juan Roman knocked out Michael Shipp. And my broadcast partner at the time, Jens Pulver, gives a holy shit because it was that next level. I mean, we've seen so many different, not only just knockout submissions. I mean, you name it, dude. This is what we come to expect from Cage Aggression. So I expect October 14th and October 15th to be no different. Brother, I really appreciate you taking the time because I know as the closer it gets to the fights, you have your hands very, very full. So I appreciate you, man.
No, I appreciate you too, man, taking the time out and just to chat. It's going to be another great one.
I was always down to support you, my man. And obviously, you got some UFC Hall of Famers calling the scraps. Pat Milicic going to be in there calling it with the old Jason Burmis. Looking forward to it, man. CageAggression.tv if you can't make it to the quad. Mike Goodwin, I appreciate you, brother. Continued success. And looking forward to the scraps October 14th and October 15th.
Awesome. Thanks, bro.
Absolutely. Peace and so much love, guys. Take care of yourselves. Respect.